And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Welcome to Odd Reality Radio, the show designed to generate thought through entertainment. Join us as we explore the strange and unexplained, the unanswered and the unbelievable on Odd Reality Radio.
An error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
The void is like space. Now, space contains everything. The mountains, the oceans, the stars, the good people and the bad people, the plants, the animals, everything. Now, the mind in us, the true mind, is like that. You will find that when Buddhists use the word mind, they've several words for mind, but I'm not going into the technicality. They mean space. See, space is your mind.
Welcome to Odd Reality Radio. I'm Cy West, and today we tap into the potentials of frequency and sound. We discuss a couple of the more interesting ways that we are currently using sound, and we also flip through a few of the strangest books and grimoires ever found throughout time. All this and much, much more. Stay tuned. You're listening to Odd Reality Radio. Now, without awesome feedback from the cool people that I've had the pleasure of interacting with so far, I'd probably have quit and walked away from the podcast by now. So I'd like to just take a moment to thank all of the awesome new listeners who have taken time to give us some feedback. First of all, Matt, thank you so much for your email. I received it when I could have used it most, so thank you. And of course, I would love any weird news from Delaware. And as far as the other thing you were talking about, I don't necessarily know how comfortable I'd be sharing that information on the show. But between you and I, if you can find anything interesting out about that group that you mentioned, please feel free to pass it along my way. Next up, thanks, Ferdinand, for your email. I hope you found the information that I sent you useful. Also, I'd like to take a minute to mention that former guest of Odd Reality Radio, Nathan Kalashaw, was able to meet his goal and is fully funded to take the Great Southwestern Suzuki Adventure. So, once again, congratulations, and we wish you the best of luck, and we look forward to hearing about how the trip goes. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what the Great Southwestern Suzuki Adventure is, you can get a more in-depth description with the Nathan Kalashaw interview, which was just a couple of episodes back. So feel free to listen back to that and fill yourselves in. And another quick reminder of the upcoming Utah UFO Fest, which takes place this August from the 19th through the 22nd. And it's got a terrific list of guest speakers, including Stanton Friedman, Travis Walton, Chris O'Brien, and many, many more. For more information, just go to bit.do/oddrealityradio and follow the Utah UFO Fest link on the right-hand side of the page. Also, I'd like to remind those of the listeners that are interested about the Odd Reality Radio Skinwalker Ranch Meetup campout. It's also most likely going to take place in August sometime. But those who have reached out, I will be emailing you back sometime within the next 2 or 3 weeks with some questions about planning and preparation so that we can nail it down or see if, September or July works better, just, coordinating in that way. For those of you who don't know what Skinwalker Ranch is, we did an episode on the Skinwalkers and included at the end of that some information about the Skinwalker Ranch, which is right here in Utah, where Odd Reality Radio is located, about 2.5 hours away from the studio. So I am serious about getting this going. So anyway, more information, send me an email, info@oddrealityradio.com, and we'll get together this summer. Now, I've gone and set up a voicemail for the show as another means of interaction, and I really do love hearing from you guys, so please feel free to use it and use it often. The number is 206-338-0947, so give me a call and tell me about your paranormal experience. And speaking of paranormal experiences, let's discuss grimoires and other strange texts. Now, one of my favorite mysteries in the world of the strange and unexplained is the mystery of the Voynich manuscript, which is a book written in an unknown alphabet, and it contains images of these strange plants that are not known to modern scientists, as well as the fact that the book was estimated to have been written between 1404 and 1438, which is a strange and specific 34 years. But anyway, it was written entirely on vellum or calf skin, and cryptographers, mathematicians, and linguists from all over the world have not been able to yet decipher this book, which just adds to the intrigue. Now, aside from the Voynich manuscript, there are a handful of other texts surfacing over time with similar curiosity and intrigue woven into the pages. Now, Fate magazine actually shared an article on their Facebook page recently that highlighted a few of the strangest books and grimoires ever discovered. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with what a grimoire is, essentially a grimoire is just a collection of magic spells and invocations. So a spell book. It's just a fancy name for a spell book. Now, number one on the list, like we mentioned, is the Voynich manuscript. And its name actually comes from an antique book dealer, Wilfrid Voynich, who ended up buying the book secondhand in Italy in 1912. Now, the next one on the list is the Munich Manual of Demonic Magic, which is also known as the Necromancer's Manual. Now, this grimoire is the work of a 15th century German magician who wanted to produce a source book for evoking demonic spirits. Now, this doesn't sound like the kind of guy that you'd want to invite to your birthday party. Now, the manual contains the 3 major kinds of magic found in grimoires. It's got illusionist, psychological, and divinatory magic. Now, illusionist spells are meant to fool people into seeing things like castles or armies. Psychological spells are meant to leverage emotional or political power over people. And divinatory actions are intended to extract information from the future or the past. Now, the Munich Manual contains passages that describe sacrificing mythological creatures, but the most eerie component of the book is that it completely ignores angel folklore and focuses exclusively on black magic and descriptions of classical exorcisms. Now, the third one on the list is known as the Codex Seraphinianus. That word just doesn't quite roll off the tongue. First time I said it, I actually was sounding it out like I was in elementary school again, and it ended up coming out as Seraphinianus, which I don't think the author intended it to be pronounced as such. But anyway, this is known as one of the strangest books of all time, and a new edition has just been released. The Codex Seraphinianus is different than any other book on the list because the author Luigi Serafini is known, and it was written in the 1970s. Now, the Codex Seraphinianus is similar to the Voynich in its largely unintelligible, syntaxless text and fascination with fauna and floral specimen. It also features trucks with human heads, skeletons getting fitted for new bodies, and weird animals that don't exist. This book was published in the early 80s, which probably added to its pop lore. Number 4 is the Heptameron, or 7 Days, and this grimoire was originally modeled to imitate the Decameron, which is a classic Greek text, kind of in the way of the Brothers Grimm and their fairy tales. It's a collection of 100 stories told throughout 10 days in Greek lore. Now, the author of the Heptameron, Pietro de Abano, who died in prison during the Inquisition, believed in something called planetary magic, by which one could conjure angels for the 7 days of the week. Now, after doing a little bit more research on planetary magic, I was able to find some stuff on planetary and astrological magic, and how it actually differs from the basic elemental magic in that elemental focuses primarily on the attributes of energy, and planetary or astrological magic functions on a combination of energies, psychology and spirit formulations, which leads me to a very grateful mindset that this guy, the author, ended up passing away, because if he were more successful, I think we'd be in more trouble than we already are in the world. But moving on, number 5. This one is actually not necessarily a grimoire, and its title is kind of strange. It's known as On the Writing of the Insane. Now, this book, like I mentioned, it actually isn't about magic or demons at all, but it may be one of the strangest and eeriest books on the list. It was written by a man by the name of G. Mackenzie Bacon, who was a medical superintendent at the Fulbourn Asylum near Cambridge, England, and the book contains the complex, diagrammatic writings of an asylum patient who filled every centimeter of his pages with wild musings and diagrammatic text. Now, he was asked to abandon this specific writing style, in which he replied, "Dear Doctor, to write or not to write? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to follow the visit of the great Fulbourn with chronic melancholy, expressions of regret, that, as the fates would have it, we were so little prepared to receive him, and to evince my humble desires, to do honor to his visit. My Fulbourn star, but an instant seen like a meteor's flash, a blank when gone. The dust of ages covering my little sanctum parlor room, the available drapery to greet the doctor, stowed away through the midst of the regenerating cleansing of the little world. The great physician walked, bedimmed by the dark ages, the long passage of western enterprise, leading into the curvatures of rising eastern morn. The rounded configuration of lunatic's gardens lives in overshadowment on Britannia's vortex." Now, I don't know about you, but I understood about maybe 4% of what was just said. Now, sadly, the author later drowned himself in public. It's not surprising with that much going on in the head that they just wouldn't have an outlet. And, condolences, that is a terrible tragedy, but an extremely interesting text nonetheless. Number 6. The Picatrix, or The Aim of the Sage. And this one is the largest grimoire in history, It's also the quintessential tome of the 11th century Arabic magic, and it contains spells that explain how to poison by sleep, gaze, or at work, as well as acquiring the love of another, escaping from prison, and healing a scorpion's sting. Now, a couple of those seem like they may be useful in this day and age. It also describes confections that are composed of blood, brains, and urine. It definitely doesn't sound like a pastry I'd want to taste test, that's for sure. Now, obviously, these are kind of the Cliff Notes versions of these books. I would like to, in the near future, get a hold of some more information on a few of these and possibly do an episode on really interesting texts of its own. Number 7, the Oralinda book. This old Frisian book purports to contain wisdom dating back 4,000 years, including teachings from the mythical Atlantis. Unfortunately, it was a favorite among Nazi occultists and is thus tainted with epic creepiness. Some even refer to it as Himmler's Bible. Number 8, the story of the Vivian Girls. Now this one is an unparalleled example of art brut, or raw art that was made by the truly eccentric. Now, like the Codex Seraphinianus, this book is contemporary, and its author is known. After his death in 1973, it was discovered that reclusive American writer Henry Darger had penned a 15,145-page, single-spaced fantasy manuscript called The Story of the Vivian Girls, in what is known as the Realms of the Unreal, of the Glandeco and Gelenian War storm caused by the Child Slave Rebellion. Now that is one hell of a title. And I'll bet you it had something to do with the fact that he never took it to the publishers. He just knew that it wouldn't fit on the spine, and that just won't cut it. The book contains graphic color illustrations and ranges in content from floral landscapes to child torture. And the article actually says, please note, Darger usually depicts his girls as having little penises. I'm sorry, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know any girls with penises, but I guess, I don't know, to each his own. Or her own. Whatever. Now, the last one on the list is the Red Dragon, or the Grand Grimoire. And the Grand Grimoire, circa 1520 AD, also called the Red Dragon, or the Gospel of Satan, was discovered in the tomb of Solomon in 1750, and is written in either Biblical Hebrew or Aramaic, and the 4-part book is owned by the Roman Catholic Church and is kept in the Vatican secret archives, where it remains unavailable to the public. How do we know it exists? Well, the Church claims official ownership of it. The legend of the Red Dragon is that the manuscript was based on writings by the apocryphal Honorius of Thebes, whom many claimed was possessed by Satan. The book is said to contain proof of demonic evocation and occult spells, as well as the process whereby newly elected popes are slowly won over by Satan's greatness. Unsurprisingly, the Grand Grimoire is still used widely by practitioners of voodoo, especially in Haiti, where it is called Le Véritable Dragon Rouge. Oh, and the book is also rumored to be impervious to fire. So those are just a few of the most interesting texts I have ever heard of personally. If you have heard of any of these or know anything more about them, please feel free to let us know. Or if you know anything about texts I may have missed, please send us an email at info@oddrealityradio.com and fill us in. We'll be right back with Frequency and the Power of Sound, right here on Odd Reality Radio. first of all, what is frequency and what is sound? And what is the difference between the two? Well, first of all, simply put, sound is the vibrations that travel through the air or water that can be heard when they reach an active or healthy eardrum. Essentially just our perception of frequency response. But frequency itself is so much more. Frequency actually has two definitions. Now, one of them is somewhat irrelevant in the context of what we're going to discuss, and that's the rate at which something occurs or repeats over a particular period of time. So somewhat similar to consistency or whatever in this context. Now, secondly, and the primary focus of this episode is the rate at which vibration occurs that constitutes a wave, either in a material, as in, sound waves, or in electromagnetic fields, as in radio waves or light waves. And it's usually measured per second. The measurement is recorded in the Hertz unit of measure and is named in honor of the 19th century German physicist Heinrich Rudolf Hertz. Now, the Hertz measurement is often abbreviated with an uppercase H, lowercase z, and it actually is the number of waves that pass by per second. Now, for example, the A note played on a violin string vibrates at about 440 hertz, or 440 vibrations per second. Now, it's incredible that in the 19th century, we, and when I say we, I mean humans, we had come so far as to be able to identify an accurate measurement such as this, let alone the manipulating that we do now. One of the things that people tend to forget or allow to get lost in the busyness of modern society is how much that we rely on all of our senses. Now, I watched this video recently on how Valspar, the paint company, and another company called Enchroma have partnered up to provide colorblind people with the opportunity to see colors they have never seen or experienced. And it got me thinking about how lost I would be without sound specifically. And so that led me on a path through frequency and a better understanding of the world around me through frequency. Now, there are a handful of ways we're already using sound around us that improves our daily lives, things that we may tend to take for granted, like I said, or perhaps we've always been aware of. Things as simple as, say, the stethoscope. Now, we've all been to the doctors, or at least for the sake of explanation, I'm going to assume that we've all been to the doctor. And we've all had Doc listen to our heartbeat with the metal-looking headphones with the ever-cold amplified listening end, or the stethoscope. And we use sound to listen to the various sections of the body with the stethoscope. Most commonly, we listen to the heart, the lungs, and the intestines. But pretty simply put, this is an effective use of sound to diagnose illnesses or ailments or whatever may be wrong. Now, another familiar way that we use sound is through sonar, or originally sound navigation and ranging. Sonar has been a natural technique for various types of aquatic life and bats for as long as their species have known to exist. Now, even sooner than that, some dinosaurs may have even used variations of sonar, but it wasn't until 1490 that Leonardo da Vinci recorded use of sonar in water. He is said to have used a tube in the water to detect incoming vessels, which is a pretty incredible thing in the 1400s to be able to do something so innovative or so undeveloped. But sonar has evolved over the years, or rather our understanding and ability to manipulate sound to our advantage has evolved. So we've been able to harness sonar, and it's changed over the years, and even today we are finding new ways to use sound to improve the quality of our living. In fact, I work in manufacturing, and we use sound on a daily basis, whether it's in the way that we identify how a tool may be wearing by the pitch as it cuts into the metal or material, or by the ultrasonics that actually assist in cleaning off debris with sound. Now, there are things that we've discovered in the world of sound that may have been ahead of its time somewhat. For example, ambisonics. Now, I've never even heard of ambisonics prior to doing the research on this episode, so I'll explain to the others like myself who also aren't familiar with what ambisonics are. Now, ambisonics are a full sphere surround sound technique. In addition to the horizontal plane, it covers sources from above and below the listener. Now, what I mean by being ahead of its time is actually just the fact that this technique was developed in the 1970s and hasn't had commercial success. Although, since the 1990s, interest has grown, and it does continue to grow, luckily, for somebody like myself. Now, sound is an extremely powerful thing. I've recently seen a video being passed around social media in which two gentlemen are extinguishing a flame with the use of a sound extinguisher. Now, this low-frequency sound wave that they're using to extinguish flames are what I believe to be something is known as infrasound, or ultra-low frequency sound waves that are so low that our ears don't actually register the sound. This frequency ranges from about 20 hertz and below, and although it can't be heard, it is said that some people are so sensitive to the infrasound that they can become physically ill after experiencing it. Now, an interesting fact about infrasound is that there are animals that actually use infrasound to communicate or assist in echolocation. In fact, elephants are known to use infrasound. And unfortunately, we've got wind turbines across the United States and the UK that are actually making people sick with the infrasound produced by the gigantic blades. But on the other hand of the spectrum, there are people that claim that by using these ultra-high frequencies and light waves that they would kill these harmful microorganisms living within the body. Now, this sounds like something right out of Tesla's lab, and they even gave it a somewhat poetic name in the way that Tesla would have. They named it the beam ray. Now, the beam ray is a light and sound generator developed from the technology of Royal Raymond Rife. And Rife invented a powerful light microscope that had magnification of 60,000 times. With this invention, he and other scientists were able to see microbes and viruses that were previously unknown. The beam ray light and sound generator was programmed to produce a frequency that would kill harmful microorganisms in the same way that a singer shatters glass with a focused tone. Rife was able to determine with his microscope the frequency that would demolish the organism. He could then program the beam ray to that specific frequency and thereby destroy the organism. Rife discovered a virus related to cancer, and in 1938, with a grant from the National Institute of Health, in a study documented by the University of Southern California, 16 out of 16 cancer patients were completely cured by Rife's beam ray in just 4 months. Their doctors had considered these patients terminally ill or incurable. Rife's beam ray worked with many other diseases of his time. The June 20th, 1944 Smithsonian Annual Report mentions sarcoma, leprosy, tuberculosis, and typhoid. Now, in another research project at West Holt Memorial Hospital in Atkinson, Nebraska, it showed some promising results when the beam ray demonstrated the ability to decrease and even stop various types of pain with virtually no side effects. These symptoms of pain were from conditions related to gout, fibromyalgia, West Nile virus, shingles, chronic sinusitis, Crohn's disease, allergies, irritable bowel syndrome, depression, insomnia, pain in the back and legs, edema, swelling, psoriasis, premenstrual and menstrual pain, headaches, and various skin problems. Now, it might just be the New Age enthusiast inside of me, but I hope this kind of technology they pursue more seriously in the medical field. And I feel that if we can harness these types of things, that we can actually come up with a healthcare system that actually cares about the health instead of itself. But at this point, the results of the research project claim that this could be a step in the right direction of eliminating bigger problems with little or no side effects. I mean, not to mention that we could be opening this Tesla-style healthcare. That'd be great. I think, interest in him alone has peaked in the last 15 or 20 years immensely. I think it would all do us some good. Now, because this show was delayed so long, and because it is about sound and the influence through sound, I thought that I would play a song that I wrote that kind of seems to fit the theme of the episode. So, without any more tap dancing, this is a song I wrote called Test A. Crashing on him. A wall of waves. The lines just won't connect. Yet I still steady my gaze. Her eyes come crashing on in. A wall of waves. The lines just won't connect. Yet I still steady my gaze, and the sun never comes, so I live through the rain, and the water is rising, and the tides are changing, and the lonely do the dumbest things just for a little company. We've all been there. And the heart wants what it wants, even when the mind thinks differently. Her eyes come crashing on it. Wall of waves, and the lines just won't connect. Yet I still steady my gaze, and her eyes come crashing on in. A wall of waves. You know, sound has a unique and personal way of connecting us all. We can hear a song by somebody that we've never met in person and feel like we know this perfect stranger as if they were a lifelong friend. I find that really, really interesting. Now, how is it that sound has such an impact? How can we use this impact to better our humanity? And on the opposite side of the spectrum, how is it already being used against us? I mean, take a look at the music industry and what they're producing and what they're making millions on. Half of the songs don't make any sense, and the ones that do make sense are so cliche and so repeated that it just, there's such little feeling within the higher ranking artists within music, unfortunately, and that's one of the reasons why I don't really pursue a music career. I just use it to stay sane. But like I said, how can we use this to better ourselves? It's music's power that seems to go somewhat unnoticed by so many people. At least the impact of it just goes widely unnoticed. Now, another way that sound is being used that is extremely interesting is in the way that this British company, Ultra Haptics, is using it. Now, they've developed this unique technology that enables users to receive tactile sensations from these invisible three-dimensional floating objects in midair. Using the ultrasound to precisely project sensations through the air, users can feel and interact with these virtual objects. Professor Sriram Subramanian, who co-developed the haptic technology at the University of Bristol's Computer Science Department, explained that their device applies the principles of acoustic radiation force, whereby sound waves produce forces on the skin which are strong enough to generate tactile sensations. He says, if you go to a nightclub or rock concert, you can feel the music in your chest, and it's the same principle. You feel the sound vibrating in your chest, and instead of using the bass sounds, we use low-frequency ultrasound, about 40 kilohertz, and that way we can target a precise point on your fingertip or your palm. Now, by focusing complex patterns of ultrasound emanating from the specially designed pad, the air disturbances can be manipulated into floating 3D shapes that can be felt. While the team's device is still in the prototype stage, they believe that it has a diverse range of potential in real-world applications, with touchable holograms, immersive virtual reality that you can feel, and complex touchable controls in midair, all possible applications of this system. They say that it could even enable surgeons to explore a CT, letting them feel the disease, such as a tumor, using haptic feedback. Now, I find that extremely interesting because, like we discussed with the other frequency technologies, maybe they could, link the two. But I'll include the rest of the article in the show notes, and definitely check it out. There's a video attached as well that explains it a little bit further in detail. Now, it was Nikola Tesla that said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And I think he had it right more than just about anybody in this day and age, if not anybody, or any two people put together for that matter. I think he was so ahead of his time, but before I get too off course, we'll do another Tesla episode here coming up. But as far as his sentiments on frequency, energy, and vibration, I think that's something that we're talking about here. In an article that was published just yesterday, and I'm recording this on April 8th of 2015, so April 7th, this article was published in which it says that engineers from MIT, Penn State University, and Carnegie Mellon University were able to separate cells by exposing them to sound waves as they flow through a tiny channel. Now, using their novel device, they were able to show how cells originating from the same location end up separated because they are subject to different acoustic forces. They go on to show a diagram with the cancer cell as it splits off in this channel, so to speak, from the white blood cell that it was near or attached to. Now, Their new device is 20 times faster than the original, which is approaching the speed needed for testing patient blood samples. And using this new device, these researchers were able to separate these cancer cells from normal blood cells at a much, much faster rate than before. Now, this sounds exactly like, that light technology that we mentioned before, but this was a process that used to take more than 50 hours, and now it can just take a few, which, again, like we mentioned, this is taking the pain out of the process, which really is an immensely helpful thing in rehabilitation. Now, these researchers have successfully demonstrated using their new cell-sorting device the isolation of rare circulating tumor cells, or CTCs, in cancer patient samples. The separation and analysis of the CTCs provides physicians a minimally invasive way to monitor the response of cancer patients to the various treatments. And this work provides a novel means to obtain viable and unaltered CTCs and offers a new pathway for better cancer diagnosis, prognosis, therapy, monitoring, and metastasis research. So, like we mentioned, this is something that can benefit more than we were really willing to consider earlier on, I'm sure. Now, the article goes on to say most existing cell sorting technologies require tagging cells with chemicals or exposing them to stronger mechanical forces that may damage them. To sort cells using sound waves, which offer a gentler alternative, the researchers built microfluidic devices with 2 acoustic transducers which produce sound waves on either side of the microchannel. When the 2 waves meet, they combine in a way to form a standing wave, or a wave that remains in constant position. This wave produces pressure nodes, or lines of low pressure. As cells encounter each node, they are pushed further to the side of the channel. The distance of cell movement depends on their size and other properties, such as compressibility. And in the previous study, the researchers were able to separate cancer cells from red and white blood cells. But the sample flow rate through the device was only 1 to 2 microliters per minute. At that rate, it would take more than 50 hours to process a typical patient sample of about 6 milliliters. This new version of the device, however, has a working flow rate of about 20 times faster, allowing it to process a patient sample in about 5 hours. To achieve this, the researchers used computer modeling of cell trajectories, confirmed by experimentation, to adjust some of the device's other features, including the tilting angle, the angle at which the sound waves strike the channel, and the distance over which the cells are exposed to the sound waves. Now, aside from being somewhat of a new age idea, using sound to generate or promote health, I'm also impressed that it was people from MIT, Penn State, and Carnegie Mellon that took time to do this. It's nice because not necessarily that they're from those colleges, but that those colleges get more attention than your regular Joe University. And the benefits of that are attention with the field, with sound technology. Maybe other researchers are going to take the ball and run with it and make something more outside of this that, uses less invasive and less catastrophic in the way of healing time. But this is just one small step in the right direction of many that I feel like we are making in this day and age. With as negative of a world as we have, and I didn't include, I was doing some research on, somewhat of the negative aspects of sound, and there are sound weapons, and there are, infrasound technologies that people have developed, and one of the things that I do want to mention is the dosimetry handbook. So look that up. Go ahead and research the history of that. It's actually, the research for it was done here at the Utah University, or the University of Utah, rather. But go ahead and check that out. But another thing that I didn't quite really dip into is harp and how they're also using sound technology. But there's plenty of information out there, and I didn't want to be a downer on this episode. Being frequency, I tried to find information that was interesting to me and stuff that I didn't know as well, so that I could learn something as well as share something with you. And one last thank you goes out to all the amazing musicians and artists who have allowed Odd Reality Radio to use their music to enhance this show. For those of you who are new to the show, you've kind of been treated to the luxuries. Early on, I kind of made some of the music, and as I've gone through, I've been lucky enough to link up with some really, really awesome people who create some of the greatest music, in my personal opinion, and I've been extremely grateful to be able to share it with you. So once again, the likes of Makhav, thank you. Lights Out Asia, again, thank you. The newest members of the Odd Reality Radio audio crew would be Said the Sky and Ramses B. So thanks again, guys, for allowing us to enhance the quality of the show with such great music. Now, if you've got any feedback, please send it in to info@oddrealityradio.com or call our voicemail, which is 206-338-0947. Once again, that is 206-338-0947. Thanks again, and until next time, please continue to investigate life through the lens of possibility. I'm Ty West. Take care.
You will simply become completely absorbed in sound. And therefore you will find yourself living in an eternal now, in which there is no past and there is no future. It all becomes one doing, one happening. When we make music, we do it to improve your mind, to improve your character, and brings us into a state of peace where we can understand that the point of life is simply here and now. The journey itself is the point. The playing itself is the point. You will simply become completely absorbed in sound, and therefore you will find yourself living in an eternal now in which there is no past and there is no future. It all becomes one happening.